Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to talk about the difference between a relationship that is just going through a bad phase and a relationship that has become toxic. This is because I am seeing a lot of relationships breaking apart, a lot of homes breaking apart just because you or both parties now believe that your relationship has become toxic. But what you don't understand or what you don't realize is that it is just a passing phase. It is a bad phase that any kind of a relationship goes through. And you know, being married at a young age, I'm going to tell you that there is nothing like the happily ever after. All relationships are hard work. Whether it is a relationship or whether it is now a marriage, all of it is hard work. And what I'm going to say to you is all of those things that you see on Hollywood, you know, it is just in movies. Romeo and Juliet, they only exist in movies. In reality, it is a struggle. The struggle is real. So guys, this is what I'm going to talk about today. But before I get into it, I want you to ask yourself this question. If you are in that kind of a relationship, if you're facing those problems, if you're asking yourself in your brain, like, I don't know where I stand, I don't know if I should stay and fight, or I don't know if I should go, I want you to ask yourself this question. Do you still love your partner? Despite anything that you're going through, do you still love them? Do they still love you? Do you see a sense of love in that relationship? Because if you do, I can tell you that then it is possible that your relationship can become healthy again. It doesn't matter whether it's a passing phase or it is a toxic relationship. There is a high chance that just because of that love, it is that spark, it is that light that you need as the end of your tunnel for you to end the misery that you are in and the relationship to become healthy. And one other thing that I want you to ask yourself is, do I want to fight with him or her, or do I want to fight against him or her? Do I want to hold hands and say, I'm going to fight for something that I love, I'm going to fight for this relationship that I value? Or are you saying, okay, I'm going to prove him or her wrong, I'm going to show him or her that I'm right? If you're going to have that mindset, I am sorry, no tips will work for you to try and save your relationship. Remember what they say, a kingdom that is divided cannot stand. So ask yourself that question before you go further with this video. And the fact that you are seeing this video, it is because you see somehow you are telling yourself that I can still save my relationship. So let's get right into it. What is that thin line between the two? So the most important thing that I'm going to point out first is, if your relationship has become physical, psychological, emotional, it has become extremely abusive, I will say to you, walk away. It is better for you to walk away than to stay and live a lie. If you are not happy, if those things that I mentioned have now become a sort of a life in your relationship, realize that it is better for you to walk away. No one deserves to live abused in any kind of a form. But if you see that you just have misunderstandings here and there, maybe it is because of the yelling, or maybe it is because of stress that people come with from work. It is those small things, you know, that you can say we can work out on. Then that means your relationship hasn't become toxic yet. It is just a passing phase. Me and my husband went through the same thing about a year ago. For those who know, we broke up for 3 months. And everyone thought it was over. I also thought it was over. But one thing that we realized is we still loved each other. Though we wouldn't talk day in and day out, every time at some point within us, on our parts, you know, we still knew that we still feel something for each other. And just because you still feel the same way, I can tell you today that you can repair your relationship. It is possible. It doesn't matter the demons that you are seeing. It doesn't matter. It is still possible. So what is the difference between these two? First of all, I'm going to point out that if you see your partner not taking any fault when you guys fall out, that means that relationship is unhealthy. It has become toxic. Because at the end of the day, we all make mistakes as people. That is how we're created. And what you have to realize is you are two different people that have come together. You are not the same. It doesn't matter whether you think like you have the same similarities, the same hobbies. At some point, one way or the other, there is something different between the two of you. So it is that difference that causes the problems. to come in relationships? Do we yell at each other and call each other names, or we fight but amicable? Ask yourself that question. What do I mean by amicable? I'm not saying you're going to pretend like you're not hurt and you're not going to shout, but I'm saying at the end of the day, after all the shouting is over and done with, are you able to point yourself and say, I did this wrong that contributed to this, instead of you pointing fingers and blaming the other partner? Because this is what happens in a toxic relationship. There is pointing of fingers, that it is because of you that we are not happy. So ask yourself that first question. How do we fight? How do we argue? How do we fall out? After all the fallout, how do we then move on? Do we stay days without talking each other, trying to manipulate one partner to apologize for the things that they didn't do? Ask yourself those questions. Because if you find yourself constantly apologizing for the things that you didn't do, that is really unhealthy. Second thing that can help you to differentiate the difference between the two is, after all the fights, after all the arguments, does my partner show any remorse? Do they have any sense of showing that they are sorry with what they have done? If no, then I'm sorry, your relationship has become toxic. But if you realize that after everything is said and done, without manipulation, your partner shows remorse, one way or the other, they try so hard to make it up to you, it is because they realize they've messed up. It is because they value you. Despite everything, they still value what you have. So this is what you have to ask yourself. Does my partner show any remorse? Even if they have showed the remorse, do they change their behavior? Because that is the most important thing. Do they change their behavior for a long time, or they only change for that time? If they only change for that time, that is manipulation. They want you to look at them and say they've changed only for that small period of time. And when they don't change their behavior, then that becomes toxic, because one way or the other, they are basically saying to you, I can do anything that I want, and then when you are angry or when you're threatening to leave, I can change. I can make you to stay. But when it is just a rough patch, they will show remorse. They will try to change their actions. They will try to change the behavior that made you to be angry, the behavior that made you guys to fall out. The second thing that I want you to look at is, are the problems that you have a long-term pattern, or there are things that are happening here and there? If they are a long-term pattern, then you have to realize that one way or the other, you or your partner are saying, I am not willing to change. I am not willing to compromise these things. You've got to live with it. Though you are not happy with them, I am forcing you one way or the other to live with them. And once you are in that kind of a pattern, then realize that that has become toxic. Because if your partner or you are not willing to compromise on the things that are making you to fight, then you have to realize that that is now toxic. But on the other side, if it's just a bad phase, you'll realize that those things happen here and there. They might repeat themselves, but it is not a constant pattern. It happens here and there. Most of the times, you find a way out, but there are times when they really happen so bad that you do fall out in an extent that you didn't understand. But what you have to ask yourself is, after the fallout, how then do we move on? Do we stay days ignoring each other, not talking each other, manipulating each other, making someone to ask for forgiveness for the things that they didn't do? Or are we on this other side? After the fight, after everything is done with, we look at each other and say, I'm sorry, I love you. Though it is the same thing that has gone over and over again. And you can see that you're keeping fighting about the same thing over and over again. Ask yourself, and where? Is it a pattern or it's a once-off thing? The other thing that I'm going to talk about that you have to look at is gaslighting. Gaslighting is something that happens in most of the relationship, and it is very, very detrimental to the person that is being gaslighted. So ask yourself that question, am I being gaslighted in this relationship or not? Then you will know whether it's become toxic, because gaslighting happens most of the times in toxic relationship. So ask yourself that question, am I being gaslighted or am I on this other side? Are you both willing to communicate after all the fight? Do you guys sit down and communicate and find a solution together and work towards it together, which is what happens in this kind of a relationship? Though sometimes you might fall out and think maybe this is the end, we are not going to fix it. But if you find yourself coming together at some point, whether it's once or twice, talking about something, finding a common ground and finding a way to move on, then that means it is just a rough patch. It doesn't matter how long it's gonna take, but if one partner is making, or both of you are making an effort to work on the relationship, it doesn't matter how long it's gonna take. That means then you still care about each other, you still love each other, you still want this relationship to work, and it is just a phase. But if you find yourself on the other side, that no matter the fight that you have, your partner is refusing to communicate, you cannot find a common ground, you cannot find a solution to the problems, or you are digging the solutions on your own, and even when you try and present them, the person is not listening, then that means your relationship has now become toxic, and it's time for you to decide whether you're gonna stay like that and be miserable, or you're gonna leave. That I'm saying is, most of the times in toxic relationships, there are people who tend to use kids against the partner in the relationship, and you have to understand that then is on the toxic part, because on this side, when you're going through a rough patch, your partner shouldn't in any form use your kids against you. I have reached out to people that have told me, like, you know what, my husband tells my kids not to listen to me. He tells them that, don't listen to your mother, whatever she says, she just chat like whatever, some of the words that I cannot say here. And the kids tend to listen to the father, or the kids tend to listen to the mother, that, you know what, father is like this or dad is like this. And it is very, very wrong, and that they have to realize that is now toxic. When you use kids to fight your battles, it shouldn't be like that. Kids should not be involved in your battles. And on this side, you realize that though you argue and fight, you still maintain that boundary of not involving kids in the relationship. You might try and pretend like everything is fine between them because you want them to see like everything is fine. But guys, one more thing, don't argue and fight in front of the kids. It really, really affects it. It really affects them. When I was growing up, I saw my dad and my stepmother fighting every time. And that really affected me. Even until now, it really, really affected me. So that is the most thing that you have to do when you're arguing, when you're having problems. Try by all means to do it away from your kids, because that has an impact, and that impact is there for life. It might be a challenge for that person or for that kid when they grow up to overcome that challenge, to overcome whatever they experience. And sometimes in life, they might find it very difficult to love, because they'll say, I come from a broken home. I saw my mom and my dad fighting and arguing all the time, and just because of that, I don't believe in love anymore. But you have to realize that it is not their fault that they've grown to be that way. It is because of a toxic relationship that you are in. It is because of the things that you have exposed in front of your kids. So don't use your kids against your partner when you are falling out. So thank you so much, guys. And these are some of the things that I just wanted to point out. And I cannot wait to hear your comments. I know that I didn't say it all, but I just wanted to touch some of those things that we see in our daily lives and we think they really don't matter. So I'm waiting. I am dying to look at your comments and hear what you've got to say. Like I said, this is a learning platform. I am here to learn from you, and you are here to learn from me. So thank you so much, guys. And until next time, take care. And remember to like and comment and give a thumbs up. Thumbs up.